been a part of the Garden of Neuro, and she has a podcast of her own, which I was fortunate to be a guest on. And I'm just really thrilled with the work they're doing out here at the Garden of Neuro and the podcasting. But I want to know something about Nanci. So welcome, Nanci.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. And Nanci's in Arizona, so I'm just a little bit jealous. I was out there a few years ago. I was actually thinking about moving there, but the environment didn't agree with me. But I guess I'll be okay in North Carolina. So
where are you in North Carolina?
In Raleigh.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have a conversation about that a little later.
Okay. That's fine with me. Okay, so Nanci, tell me about yourself. How did you get involved in all this? I know a lot of people that are in the Garden Neuro are from writers and artists and creatives and that. So let's hear about Nanci.
Well, thank you. That's I've been thinking about this because it's quite a long story, and I don't want to take a long story to tell it. It started really about well, I go back way back 10 years ago. I was a podcaster. I was working with independent authors when independent authors were brand new to the whole world, and they were still kind of looked down upon by the published author. And I was doing podcasts. I was interviewing them, reviewing their books. That led to editing. That led to promotion work, and it just kind of evolved from there. Then I took a break from publishing for a while and started helping other people in their businesses. So I got into what is now considered user interface and user experience design work. I didn't even know that until somebody had to explain it to me, but that's what I've been doing for a long time. So moving to Arizona, my whole dream was to write the next great American author, American novel, and it didn't quite work out that way. And we moved out here with horses, and that was something I wanted to do, was be able to ride my horse out into the desert, and we have that here. But then at the beginning of 2018, my horse, my four-legged soulmate, died, and it was sudden, and it was shocking, and it just stopped everything in my world for a while. Sure. And then a year later, one of my best friends, who was also a fantastic writer, hilariously funny, and also a business partner, suffered a fatal epileptic seizure and died. And it was also a big shock to my system, especially after having just barely come out of that and then going to that. And it really put me down a path of kind of what I call what the fuckery. I mean, it was just I couldn't believe all these things kept happening. Mm-hmm. And then at Jerry's funeral, I was supposed to speak at our funeral, and I had written this beautiful story about her and us and our friendship and our relationship. And then I didn't speak at her funeral. I didn't stand up and speak, and it just caused a lot of shame and anger in me. And that continued to fester as I learned more about what Jerry was doing with a local therapy ranch out here called the Rancho Milagro, and they help victims of the sex slave industry. And all these dots in my life started connecting of trauma and family dysfunction and abuse and survival and thriving. And I had figured out that the part of our problem is that we don't tell our stories enough. We're not, especially as women, things happen to us and we're told to keep it quiet. We're told not to tell that story. We're told a lot of things that are just not true. And as I started to come out of that and write more about it is when I met Susan. And I met her through a couple other publications with Medium, but it was when she started Medium that really kind of connected me with her. And we just started having these conversations about the experiences we've had, the things that we want to create in the world. And I just felt so in line with her and the vision of it all. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell. But really, I was looking for something more than what I was doing. And this is what I found. So it's really a neat place to land.
Yes, that's how I got to meet Susan. We're talking about Susan Brearley. She's the founder, I guess you would call, of the Garden of Neuro, and also Medium, which is um, what we call that. It's on Medium, one of the, I can't think of what you call them,
Well,
the different
it's the
segments.
fastest growing humor publication on Medium.
Publication.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Thank you for bailing me out there. I was stuck. Yes, Medium has been a lot of fun to write, too, because it challenges you the humorous side of things.
Yeah.
Humor writing was something I needed to work on, so I wrote
And,
on there for a
when you're
while.
dealing with a lot of anger, being funny, Judd Apatow, the creator of the 40-year-old virgin,
Hmm.
he says angry people make the funniest people.
Yeah.
Once we get past some stuff, we can really see the humor, the absurdity in certain things. And you have to be able to laugh. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think Susan was doing she was starting to get into stand-up when COVID hit. And I was trying to get in front of women to speak as well about, writing your story and how important this is. And then COVID hits and we're all shut down. And she did one or two like Zoom calls where we could
Yeah.
read our work. And those quickly dwindled down to where it was just the two of us. And she started talking about books and how many she reads a year and journals. And then she got to the heart of it all and we started talking about neuroscience. And that
Hmm.
to us is like candy, just feed it to us every minute of the day. So yeah, it's interesting how you're going down one path and all of a sudden something can change. And that I am a music quoter and a movie quoter. I love my music, my movies and my music. And so that is Green Day, Life Grabs You by the Wrist, Directs You Where to Go. That's
Hmm.
from one of their songs. And I love that song. I love the message in it. And that's what we have to do. We have to let life grab us by the wrist. And that's kind of
Right.
how I ended up in the garden.
What happens in the garden? What's the garden all about?
What is the garden all about? I was thinking about this, how to explain the garden. The garden is a collective of women, and it's a place where women can come together and both share their experiences, learn from each other, bring ideas to the table, find support for whatever they're going through and creating, and then find a way to share that with others. And the big goal here is to find a way to provide an income for those who participate in the garden. So we're adding to their abundance in their lives just through what they create.
Hmm. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. My screen decided it wanted to go away anyway. First of all, I'm going to show something that you have in the garden, the book club discussions, which are on your podcast, Write, Speak, Play. And then look at my playlist over there, unless you want guidance on how to sleep.
Yeah. God, we have so much fun in these conversations. And so we have a couple different conversations that take place live. We do, so in the garden, there are circles and courses and conversations and topics. I mean, there's just so much going on. So in the circles, we have a book club circle, a poetry circle, Lisa, that you know all about. We do write-ins that are both silent, and then we also do where we share our work, and then we write for 30 minutes to a writer's prompt and then share that as well. And the book clubs there's 4 tracks. You read 200 books in a year, and then there's which is pretty intense to read 200 books in a year. And then you have a women's track, so all of the very good, a top list of women authors. There's easy reads that we have. So you can, you know, skim through things. And then we have monthly reads. So there's always an opportunity for a book to read in there. And then we discuss them. And once a week we get together and we have these fantastic conversations about these books we read. Starting with Sapiens. Sapiens is just an amazing book to read. We get into the Soul's Code. I've got a couple behind me here. Sand Talk, just Flying Lead Change. Fantastic books that are about really the neuroscience of rewiring your brain through enlightenment, through education, learning things that you have not thought before. So yeah, the book clubs are fantastic. I'm all about the book clubs. But then there's also the courses that Susan and I and Catalina are putting together. Susan has put together, I think, the best one so far, that if anyone's really interested in hearing about the true journey of how the garden has come together, you have to take the Garden Journal, the Garden Vision course. It's just a great, it's going to become a great archive of how the garden started and how Susan has been working on this for so long. And so, you know, please go in and take that and you'll learn so much more about it. But there's a lot going on in there. You know, I want to tell you more about the kitchen table talks and then our women project that we do. These are fantastic structured conversations, but yeah, they're great.
Wonderful. So what about the kitchen table talks?
Okay, so kitchen table talks is where it's a structured conversation where it's timed. You know, we're presented with a question. We are each given like a minute or two to give our answers to the question, our perspective, our thoughts, our experiences, and then we circle back around on those answers. And each one of us is given time to, you know, speak our truth, and then we move on to the next person. And so there's no kind of going on and getting off topic. And by the end of it, you've come away with a whole new perspective that gives you something to write about, that gives you something to think about, and then, you know, have conversations with other people as well. So there's that part of it, but then there's also, we have the Women's Project, which is, again, another structured conversation when we 2 or 3 women bring their idea or project or business or, you know, something they're trying to work out to the table. They share it with us, and then we give our feedback. We can offer assistance to get, you know, like say, Lisa, you have a project you're working on and you just need someone to get you over this little hump, but you don't even really know where to start.
Right.
So if you can bring it to this group of women who, and someone in the court, you know, someone can say, I can give an hour, I can help you with that and get you over this hump. And now you're how much further ahead in whatever you're trying to achieve.
Right. Oh, that's good to know. I may
Yeah,
have to pay a visit.
fantastic, you know, and if you've been in the garden, like we have Laura, who's doing the Million Women's Walk on Wednesdays, where we all walk together and share our walking experience on Wednesdays. And she brought some questions to the table, and hopefully we helped her get through them so she can move on to the next phase of what she's, you know, growing a business. And Shalou was in there too. She came in with some great, you know, a project from her heart, really, to talk about the questions we ask. You know, when we ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? And how limiting that can be to a child, you know.
Right.
How about asking them the question, how do you want to feel every day? Or, you know, just, so the conversations are deep, but they're also guided. Like I said, they're structured, and it makes the results happen a lot faster, I think.
Right. Wow. I'm a member of the garden. I'm kind of more of a lurker. I come in and out as I have a real busy schedule, but I try to come in and check in, and mostly in the poetry circle. That's my wheelhouse, but I also like to write.
The poetry circle is
Go in
wonderful.
there.
You know, when we do the live poetry circles on Saturday and people share, those are wonderful. What an experience to have. I've never been to a live poetry reading. in person.
Oh,
So this experience of being able to, it's kind of like how I wanted to get into public speaking, but that's kind of scary, to
uh-huh.
go to a poetry reading and get up on stage, that's kind of scary. So you're almost getting through a phase of that fear, doing it this way. And then the
Right.
next step can be getting in person. You've already got your
Yeah.
stuff down, you've already got. So yeah, I like the poetry circles. They're really very, very interesting.
Are they well attended?
We've had good attendance and then people come and go. But I think as more women come to the garden and discover what we offer there, and there's that space to share,
Right.
and you don't want to share to necessarily strangers every Saturday. You want
Sure.
people who, get your work and can
Mhm.
relate to it. And this is the space to do it in.
Yeah. I'm a full advocate of getting out there on these open mics, and I conduct them, I participate in them. And I never thought I would do anything like that because I'm really nervous about reading my poetry out loud. But if you read your poetry out loud, sometimes you find out there are things you need to fix. It also helps you become more intimate with your work. And because I have a real hard time, I have a mental block for memorization, it actually helps me somewhat be able to remember more. So, and then it's nice to get some feedback, especially if it's positive, which it really is in our poetry circles. So,
I
yeah,
think
it's real
too, being
affirming.
able to put your words out there and have other people hear them, you feel their reaction to them. And
Hmm.
that's important to us as a writer to understand how our words impact other people. So yeah, being
Yeah.
able to share them like that in that truly in that really safe space, that's I think the most important part of
Hmm.
when especially this kind of the stuff I share can be hard, hard to put out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And now I belong to a group that we meet, I guess it's about twice a year, where we share our poetry. And it's a real, what we call the sacred space because it's private. Nobody can come in and read your work. Only people who belong to the same group can read your work. There's a real respect and honor. And some of the things that are shared are extremely personal. And actually, anything that I've written in that particular group has been the poetry that I've been able to go out there and publish after I've polished it. So there's something to be said about having a safe place to read your poetry.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And then I've been able to offer members in the garden to share their poetry on my podcast with
Mhm.
Write, Speak, Play. They can just send me a sound bite and we'll do, if it's a 3-minute reading, I do little mic drops. And they're kind of fun to go back and listen to because they're just a few minutes and I don't put like
Mhm.
any of the advertising or anything like that in it. And they're really cool. It's really
I've
it's
listened,
really a neat experience to have that. And
those are
then
nice. I've listened to them.
and some of them are longer. I've read a couple of other writers' pieces that are a little longer. I like doing that, but the most important part of the whole thing, the podcast, is to allow others, not just myself, but others to share their story. And
Mhm.
some people don't want to read it. They're not ready to read it yet.
Right. Well,
Mm.
they will when it's time, or they won't,
Yeah,
whatever they feel comfortable with it.
yeah.
So how does a person join the garden?
So it's free. It's as easy as a link. We'll make sure to put a link in your show notes. And
Mhm.
then
Yep.
they can also find me at Nanci Writes, and my first name is spelled Nanci, and then writes.com. And I have a link there that will take them to the garden. Because it is I don't know that we have an actual, I'll have to ask Susan about that, about the gardenofneuro.com that would point to the Garden of Neuro, because it's hosted on a platform called Mighty Networks. It's a little
Mhm.
different kind of URL. And I'll have to see if I can find that really quick. Maybe I can. But It's, yeah, so it's garden-of-neuro.mn.co/feed. And that might be how it comes up for me just because, but like I said, if you go to, we'll make sure we put a show notes in
Yeah, I
your
have
show
it
notes.
actually already in my show notes.
Yeah. And then the good part is if someone comes through your link, now this is an interesting part of how the garden is structured. What Susan is growing here is a way for, like, say, Lisa, you wanted to create a course on writing poetry or sharing poetry or even podcasting. You, as you grow in your engagement in the garden, there's certain levels you achieve. And as you go through those levels, Susan offers coaching in order to see where you're going in life, in business, and whatever it might be. And you're able to create a course within the garden. And your course can be free, it can be a paid course, but it offers you the opportunity to build a course to share your experience, your expertise to the members of the garden, to a collective audience that is already there and interested in what each other is doing, and possibly earn an income from it. And that is what's so different about the garden, where she's offering that opportunity and the support. You know, it's not easy for the solo entrepreneur to go out and afford, you know, all the features, bells and whistles that maybe a platform like Mighty Network offers. Then also the team building of creating that course. You know, who wants to do it alone? And of course, having that audience when you have the course ready to go. So that is the biggest difference in the structure that Susan's putting together. This isn't just about creating abundance in her life, it's about creating abundance in all the lives of the people who want to be engaged in the garden.
Right, exactly. Wonderful. Well, Nanci, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I hope I covered everything. I know I can go on a little bit. I need my conversation structured, but I'm very excited about being a part of the Garden of Neuro. We have Susan, she has big goals and she's got her ducks in a row. And I think that's what I like most about working with her. This is a real plan. This isn't a pie in the sky type of thing. And she calls it her, end of life project, and which is, I hope, long live the king, right? Long live the queen. But, if anyone has any questions about the garden, they're welcome to contact me, Nanci Writes. I'm also Nanci Writes on Twitter and Instagram, and or find me in the garden. Just would love to have you there.
All right. Nanci, thank you so much for coming on here today. I really appreciate it. I'll see you in the garden.
All right. Thanks, Lisa. Have a good day.
Thank you.